So in a way, I will understand those African American who say, I'm not African American, I'm American, because I have no experience, African experience at all. It's valid. I want to respect that. I want to, respect that and understand where they're coming from. But I also want to nuance that, right? I also want to bring up something that was hidden from them maybe. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to remove that veil from your eyes and like, okay, I want to have the whole truth. And my advice to you usually is, I can send you this document. All the notes that I take are saved in your, yeah, I can send you all the notes I take. Yeah, I could see that you were writing. Don't worry, I can actually attach it into email and send it to you. Don't worry, I will do that. Yeah. So it's very, it is very, very important. So how do I? Yeah, it is a general feeling among African Americans and especially African Americans in terms of who am I, and even in academia, it's broken into three layers. In academia, the first layers is about the one group of African American or the African center intellectuals. They they stayed in the system. They stay in the dominant academic system, maintain the values and everything that has developed academia, but criticize it from inside. They critique the system from inside and say, you are ignoring African American issues. You're ignoring this. You're ignoring that. We do not really critique your methods and style and everything, but we're just pointing out that you are ignoring a big chunk of the population that has a unique experience that is not covered in your research and stuff like that. See, so they are still mainstream psychologists and scholars using Western European academic tenets and all that, but only point out two things that are flaws inside the system. So there's another one. The second one is kind of like doing half-half, trying to look a little bit into the African system and trying and so maintaining the European system, trying to be in the middle there, navigating both, and show and saying, well, we're not totally rejecting your methods and ways and everything, but we want to also introduce some of the African ways, like we also want to bring an African perspective in your conversation in a way we are begging for you to give us a platform in your field, in your area, in your in your domain, so that we can talk about our concerns. Did you see a little bit of nuance there? One is not necessarily doing that. The first one is inside the system, only pointing out that something is being forgotten. The experience of African American is being forgotten, but they do not do anything. The second one's not only point that the African American experience is forgotten, but try to bring it in the conversation. So what they do is they are using Western European tools and instruments and approaches and methods to study African American experience. And the difficulty that they face with that is you cannot use one instrument that is developed for a specific people and apply it to people who have a different kind of experience. The instrument will be flawed from the get-go, from the beginning. You need to adjust. So what they do is they adjusting the tools. A specific example is that is a woman who was on my committee, my dissertation committee. She's African, but she moved to America, got all her degrees there, and became a clinical psychologist there and all that from New York and everything. And So she's a little like in the middle. So what she does is she's still in the mainstream. She's still using the cognitive behavioral therapy approach, the way it's used in the West, but she just tweaks it a little bit by adding some African veneer on it, some African sprinkle in it. So one of her article is the trickster folktale, where she went to treat a 12-year-old girl in Nigeria, in Africa, who was raped by a 30-year-old man whom she considered her uncle and things like that. And then she fell into depression. So she was diagnosing her, she diagnosed her with MDD. She used the DSM and diagnosed her with, major depression. But to help her throughout the therapy, she used an African technique called the trickster folktale, where she allowed the girl to tell her own stories, narrating what happened to her, and the technique was to avoid her from getting re-traumatized. So, and because storytelling is an African technique, so she used an African technique with a Western tool, the Beck depression inventory to measure the level of severity of depression. So, and the DSM to diagnose depression. So she used those Western tools, but introduced an African technique and combined both. How you can tell the story, using, the favorite animals in Africa is tortoise. And she told a story about tortoise, about the cat, about the people and all that. And then she started exploring her traumas through that, so those are the groups, this is the group of the African centered scholars who do not want to dissociate themselves from the dominant academic structures and tenets, but tweak them, adapt them to the culture, right? So this is the second layer. And now we have the third layer now, which is called the radicals. The radicals, they feel like the first ones didn't really do anything because they remained in the system and started just writing about how the system, the dominant system, is forgetting African American experience, but really suggesting nothing else, doing nothing else. The second, remain in the system, use the system tools, but bring in the African and African American experience in the system and adjust the tools to fit the culture, in a way begging still the Western dominated domain to allow them to speak of the experiences of African American within their own tenets there, using their own tools, but just adapting them. So, but the third one say, does not agree with the first, with the accuse of doing nothing, and the second with the accuse of begging our acceptance. That's the critique that is being levered towards them, to the second one. The third one, the radicals say, you guys are begging for the Western academia to accept us. We're done with it. We're done with this. We're going to focus on ourselves. We're going to start accepting ourselves first. We're going to start developing our own knowledge first, our own tools, methods, instruments, and dealing also with our own issues first. We will not seek anybody's permission. We will not seek anybody's approval. And the dominant DSM and all this kind of thing, and BBS in California and all that, we will just stay away from that and develop our own thing, and then exist on our own merits.